Hello there. Welcome to our first episode of Where in the World Are Scott and Zelda? And Ross Tangedal very kindly agreed to Zoom in with me. And so, Ross, would you care to guess where I am?
Well, it's you, so I'm going to start with Montgomery. You're in a cemetery in Montgomery.
That is a good guess. A lot
Why
of
not?
people might think I'm at Oakwood Cemetery, where Zelda's parents are buried and where the Ice Palace is set, but I'm actually not. So I'm going to
Okay.
give you three clues to
All
where
right.
I might be, if I can remember these clues.
All right.
All right. Number one, O. Henry. Number two, Allison Janney, the actress. Number three, Total Disaster.
Hmm.
Might you have any guesses?
No. Janny's really throwing me.
Yeah, that's on purpose.
Okay.
So I am standing outside of Stanton, Alabama, with log trucks rolling by. And this is halfway between Montgomery and Tuscaloosa. We're in Chilton County, Alabama. And this is where almost 90 years ago, in 1932, March 21st and 22nd, a series of tornadoes, devastating tornadoes, hit Alabama. There were more than 24 in 2 days' time, and more than 300 people were killed. It remains the worst, the worst tornadoes and the highest casualty rate in Alabama history, and that includes the 2011 tornadoes that devastated Tuscaloosa that several books have been written about. So why this is important to Fitzgerald is that he wrote very quickly on the heels of this natural disaster a story called Family in the Wind, which was one of the highest praised stories, certainly of the 30s. Won an O. Henry Award in 1932, which we tend to forget. And he liked it so much that he included it in Taps at Reveille. So the reason I'm standing here in particular, I just want to give you a sense of what the human cost of this disaster was. This is the gravestone for a family named the Lathams. And you can see the father, Jack, who was born in 1888, the mother, Maggie, born in 1891. This couple would have only been a few years older than Fitzgerald. They had 10 children, and out of their 10 children, 7 of them died that day. This event killed 7 out of 10 children and also the 2 parents. There is a gentleman, one of the surviving children, who was 3 or 4 years old at the time, named Jack Latham, has self-published a book a few years ago about the event. And he was interviewed back in about 2006 by the guy from the Weather Channel, whose name totally escapes me now, James Spann. So I thought we'd show just a little bit of a clip of this to see his memories of the family that he lost in this event.
And that night, about 6:30.
This was March 21st of 32.
1932. About 6:30, we heard a big loud noise. He went and opened the door and looked out and said, "My God, it's a cyclone." He didn't have time to do anything. He opened that door and it hit about the time he said, "My God, it's a cyclone." That's just about when it all hit.
Now, what do you remember about that?
Now, the actual, other than just listening to him saying, "My God, it's a cyclone," that's about all that, I mean, as far as the house, the neighbors said it went up about 50 feet in the air and exploded. And then the people scattered all over the place.
So the house sat here.
Right.
Where were you found?
Generally somewhere near my mother, and she was found over to the left over here. There was all plowed ground, fresh plowed to be planted. And she
now your mom passed away, as did
she was killed. She was buried in soft dirt up to her neck and had barbed wire all in her hair.
So you were near your mom.
Near her.
And tell me about your injuries.
Well, I had abdominal injuries. My chest was crushed, In fact, now it looks like I'm deformed, one different side different than the other. And in the hospital, Dr. Doherty, Drayton Doherty, had told Ms. McMillan, who had rolled me into the operating room, to just have him open his grave. He won't make it. But Lord with me, I made it.
You made it.
And
tell me about your dad. Where was he found?
he was found back toward Plantersville, right a distance away from here.
So you're talking maybe more than a mile?
Oh, yes. And then my younger brother was right near the road there. He was there crying and calling for Mama. And then some of my sisters that were killed were over to the right. And the oldest sister, Velma, she was found and blown back in the direction the tornado came from, back across that creek and that stand of woods over there.
And she was about 22?
She was 22. Mm-hmm. And all she had left on her, what she had been wearing, was just a cuff of a dress, cuff of a sleeve of a dress. Took us to Vaughn Memorial Hospital. And we did not know anything about the family being dead until sometime after it happened. There used to be a big barn right here, and that's where Papa kept that T Model Ford that he was so proud of when he didn't drive it when he couldn't get gas.
What happened to the car?
It just looked like somebody took a freight train and dropped on top of it and mashed it.
Okay, so Ross, I'm just kind of curious. You've read Family in the Wind, I know,
Right.
because you're writing about Taps at Reveille. What would you say about the story to folks that might not have read it?
Well, and it's important that it's collected in Taps at Reveille, right? It's a good action story. I mean, clearly Fitzgerald himself wasn't in a tornado, but I remember there's scenes in the story where the oldest son, Butch, is pulled into the center of the tornado into a tree, and that carries the tree across a field, and his car is leapfrogging. It's a little melodramatic. The second tornado, there's two tornadoes in the story. The second one kind of comes back, and the townspeople think, oh, it's the same one. It's come back to get us again. But he does some really, I mean, it's not very Fitzgeraldian as we would think. His action writing is really well done. And it reminds me of one of my favorite books, Young Men and Fire by Norm Maclean, which is, about a fire disaster in Montana. And there's a lot of disaster parallels that Fitzgerald's playing with. So it's a really well done story. It's really unique in his canon, which is great.
I think that's the thing I would really say to folks, and is that Family in the Wind can be read as a really great combination of both popular fiction in terms of the action, but also the literary depth, because the doctor, Dr. Forrest Janney,
there it is.
And that's where the clue comes from, undergoes a fairly significant transformation in the story because of the disaster. And there's a lot of parallels in this story to Babylon Revisited, including the name of the young girl, the orphan who has survived. Part of the reason that I wanted to come here specifically to the Latham's gravestone is that Mr. Latham talks about the fact that when he and his siblings were orphaned, they were sent to live with a family in Selma, Alabama, that really only wanted one of the kids. And they ended up in a fairly abusive situation. And he ended up joining the Army in World War II at the age of 14. So, this event has haunted him for many a years, and he's done interviews out here before. But he would be about about 92 or 3 at this point, and I believe he's still alive. So but at the end of the story, we shouldn't give away the end of the story, make you read it, but it is a very good story and very unique, and I think it really adds a little bit to the story to come out here and look at these dates and the number of casualties, and just to recognize that there was immense human loss on those days in March 1932.
Yeah, excellent.